So today was the day for Apple's Worldwide Development Conference. This is where all the developers for Apple's come together, and then Apple reveal all the new software that's going to run on all those devices. The iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac. And every once in a while, they toss in the introduction of some new hardware. So coming up, I'm going to give you the overview of what was released, and then I'm going to give you a feedback of what I thought about the products. How y'all guys doing today? Apple release a new iOS software every year. iOS has been running on the iPad and the iPhone. So this year, iOS turns 13. And with that, Apple said they have a whole new look on a whole new level. So let's go over the highlights of some of the features that's in iOS 13. So in iOS 13, one of the big features that Apple introduced is dark mode. So I'm glad to see that Apple has introduced that feature as an option, because things tend to look better in that dark mode versus that light mode. It seems like it's too bright. But when it's in that dark mode, it's kind of like relaxing, especially for my eyes. Because late at night, you know, when you're laying in bed or whatever and you just need to check out something, with not being in dark mode, it just lights up the place. So that dark mode reduce that brightness and make it easier for you to operate at night without disturbing somebody else. There's a new photo tab that categorizes things with the day, the month, and the year. And the cool thing about it, by watching the demo, is if something happened last year this time, it's gonna bring up those photos for that entire year. So you can stroll down and see what happened in 2018, 2017, 2016. If it's a birthday, it's going to automatically take out all the birthday pictures that happened in that particular year, 2016, 2018, 2019, all the way back in your photo library as far as it can go. Facebook kind of do that now, where it reminds you of stuff that happened last year this time, stuff that you post. My Google Photos does the same thing too. So if I did something, for instance, last year this time, it usually send out this reminder like, hey, you remember when you did this last year? So that's what Apple is doing now with their photo app. Now, one cool effect that you can do to your video now is most people, when they record video, they do it in this mode. So when you try to turn it, it's still going to be that little tiny video. But Apple has added a feature where you can actually rotate that video and save it that way. So now it will fill up the screen instead of being this portrait video that you did in this mode, when you should have recorded in that mode to make it fill up the screen. So they've solved the problem of people doing the portrait video versus the landscape video. So we're all familiar with the way that you go to certain websites and it asks you, do you want to sign with your Google account or do you want to sign in with Facebook? It's those little buttons that we see everywhere, somewhere on the sign up page. And I've done it, you know, mainly I do it to Google, you know, instead of Facebook. Now Apple has created their own and they say it's nice and secure. It will protect your privacy. And it says sign in with Apple, just like the other one said sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook. But the way they build their system is kind of different, because it's going to create this like random email and let you sign in with that. And then the person that you sign up with will never know your original email, because all they're getting is a random email from Apple. So that's pretty cool. That's a way of masking your email so you won't get spam and all that junk that comes to your email when you sign up for certain things on certain website. They have also done some improvement to the map app. Now, instead of looking at a flat picture that you used to see on the map, now you're going to see certain terrains, you're going to see buildings, all that stuff is going to be on the map. And then when you get to a certain area, it's going to pop up places that you can go to, like, you know, a food place or maybe a library or places like that that's in the local area. It's basically something that Google Maps already done, where you go to certain places and it will pop up the suggestion of the nearest restaurant or the nearest gas station, places like that. So now this is built into Apple Map. They have also improved the voice on Siri. So now Siri sounds more natural compared to robotic. They have made it a way for people who own the HomePod to hand off the phone call that you're on your iPhone. For instance, if you walk into the door and you want to switch over that conversation to your speaker, you can just hand it off to the speaker now and continue the conversation hands-free. Same thing with your music. If you're listening to music on your phone and you want to hand it off to the speaker, it is capable of doing that kind of stuff now. With the earbuds, you can actually receive text messages in voice, because it goes text to speech, and then you can respond back with your voice and she will turn your voice into text and send it back to the sender. Also with the earbuds, you can actually share. So the audio is shared between two sets of earbuds. So in the Memoji department now, they have done some cool customization to it. So now you can add earrings, you can do hairstyle, makeup, just to name a few. And then those Memojis automatically become stickers. So you can use them in messages, or you can send them in an email or some other third-party app. So on the Android phone, you could actually swipe across the keyboard to spell out a word. Apple has finally added that feature to their keyboard. They call it Quick Path Typing. So those are some of the features that they actually improve upon. There's a whole lot more, but one last one I want to touch on, and that's the voice control. Now they made it possible where you can actually control your phone. I mean, make phone calls, send texts, turn off settings, do all kind of stuff with voice only. So somebody who's disabled and they can't use their hands, they can literally use their iPhone without even touching it. Because everything functions under this voice control. That includes sending email, a text, looking up something on maps, launching apps, whatever it is, you can actually use it through this voice control. Now that's a feature that many handicapped folks will really appreciate, because not everybody can do things with their hands. And with all these touch devices that's being created now, then we have to figure out a way to make the people who are handicapped that can't use their hand to be able to interact with this phone. And Apple has made a big step in this direction. Now Google need to get on board next. So those were some of the highlighted features I just wanted to touch on. There's plenty more features that's built into iOS 13. I'd have to make a separate videos just to cover all those features. And iOS 13 will be released this fall, 2019. Now this is interesting. For years, ever since the iPad has been released, it has been running iOS. But this year, Apple is switching things up. So now iPad has a separate OS. So now we have WatchOS, we got tvOS, we got iOS, and iPad has its own iOS called iPadOS. And I think this is the right move for Apple, because you have to separate these software because they're not the same screen size. They don't have the same kind of processors. And I'm glad to see that Apple has given the iPad its own OS. So now the iPad, based on this new operating system, is shaping up to be more like a laptop and less of a tablet. Even though it still has the tablet form factor, it's doing more function now. With all the technology that Apple has built into this new iPad, at least the iPad Pro that is, it is shaping up to replace all the lower level laptops. I think Apple is probably still going to keep the Pro laptops because they have a little bit more power in them, but all the low ones like the iPad Air and stuff like that, I think Apple is shaping up to get them out of inventory and just have the iPad Pro as that lower level laptop and still have your Pro laptops. Now I can see that coming in the future. It might not be on the immediate future, but I can see that on Apple's roadmap, which wouldn't be a bad thing because the iPad Pro is getting to be a desktop class device. So the iPad has split screen now. So you can split the screen in half, and you can attach a keyboard to it and do all your typing. You got Expose, where you can see all your open windows at the same time on the screen. And the pencil that doesn't come with the iPad has been improved to have a quicker response. And it has new set of tools in the redesigned palette. And with the new macOS that I'm going to talk about later, it can act as a second screen to your laptop or your computer. They have made the keyboard floatable, so you can actually take up the keyboard and move it. So the keyboard is usually at the bottom. If you move it to the right, then it becomes a smaller keyboard, something you can use with one finger. And they've also added the quick path typing to the iPadOS. They have added a feature to the File app, so now you can actually see things in column view. And stuff like this is making it to a desktop class software, because this is what you can do on your desktop. You have many ways of viewing your files, and one of them is the column view. Now the iPad can do the exact same thing. It has network capability, so you can grab files from a file server. Or if you have a network set up at home, you can actually pull stuff off another computer onto the iPad. So now you can see more and more what I'm saying, that Apple is turning this into their low-level laptop. Now this is the feature that's swaying me back to the iPad. And the fact that I can hook up an external drive, an SD card reader, and even a USB drive. And with this feature, I can expand the storage on my iPad. so I don't have to worry about running out of space. If I run out of space, I hook up an external hard drive and I'm good to go. And most of the hard drives these days are portable. You know, those small SSD drive, you can hook them up to the port and you're in business. So thank you, Apple, for adding that feature to the iPad. I really believe that more people now are going to look at the iPad as a serious laptop. I know I'm looking at it that way because all I have to do is add a keyboard and I'm good to go. In Safari, they've added desktop class browsing, which is good because a lot of these mobile devices turn the web page into a mobile page and it doesn't interact the same way. But with the size of this iPad Pro, which is basically the size of a small laptop, you should able to get desktop class browsing. And I'm glad Apple added that feature. They even added a download manager so you can see all your downloads in that location. Basically a download folder. And yes, it comes with all those other features like iOS, dark mode, the photo app, and voice control. So that's an overview of the iPadOS. There's a ton of more features in it also, and iPadOS will be released in fall 2019. Now let's talk about the Apple Watch. The WatchOS is up to version 6. And in this version, as always, they add some new faces. And you know those watch faces come in different style to suit different needs. So they have enhanced Siri, so you can ask which song is playing, and with the power of Shazam, she can actually pull up the name of the song, album art, and everything on the watch face. You can ask her to search for different things on web pages and other stuff like that. So one of the biggest features that's been added to the app is its own app store. So now you can download apps directly from the app store to the watch. You don't have to connect with the phone anymore to get the apps from the store to the watch. So the watch is becoming very independent. You can already make phone calls from the watch without the need for the phone. For all the ladies that like to keep track of their cycle, Apple's got you covered with this Apple Watch. So this is for you if you need to keep a log of what's going on with your cycle. So Apple is trying to protect your hearing so you can hear things better by adding a decibel meter to tell you when the noise that you're around is getting to that dangerous level. So you can use this meter to track that noise level. And WatchOS will be available this fall 2019. And finally, let's talk about macOS. This year it is called Catalina. Now you might have heard stories where Apple was killing off iTunes. They're not really killing off iTunes the way I see it. I think what they're doing is making it less bloated. When I first started using iTunes, it was a perfect way of organizing music, but that's all it did. It had a few extra features on the side, but not as it is right now. And I think Apple has realized that the software has gotten very bloated. So what they're doing is just breaking out all these different parts in their own individual app, which is good because now each one of those apps can focus on the core thing that they do. So instead of iTunes, you will have Apple Music, you will have Apple TV, and then a podcast app. So therefore, anything to do with music is going to be Apple Music. If you want to watch TV, you open the TV app. And if you want to listen to podcasts, you listen to the podcast app. And all of that stuff is not bundled into one software, which will make the software from each one of those individual apps run much better. And it's a cleaner interface because you're just dealing with one thing at a time. Now remember, in order to sync your phone to the computer, you would have to plug it in and then iTunes will pop up. Now, when you plug your phone into the computer, it pops up in the Finder window. So they've actually moved all of that stuff that was in iTunes to deal with the phone into Finder. And in Finder, it has a separate window to deal with the iPhone. So we have learned that Apple has been working on a way to make you able to run apps that's built for the iPad and the iPhone to be able to run on your Mac. They call it Project Catalyst. So with this Project Catalyst, developers are going to be able to easily convert their apps that they made for the iPad and the iPhone to be able to run on the Mac OS, which includes their laptop and the desktop, which means you don't even have to have an iPhone or an iPad to run those apps on your desktop if that's the only thing you have. And just like the iPhone and the iPad, the photo app on the Mac OS Catalina has the same features where you can see the years, the months, and the days. Now a feature that's been carried over from the iPhone is screen time. Now you can monitor your screen usage to make sure you're not using the computer too long. So that way you can limit your time by scheduling downtime. Time to get away from the computer and take a walk, take a break, take a nap, just do other things than sitting there in front of the computer all day. I know that's going to be hard for somebody who's working on a major project or doing real production work. So I don't see how that's going to work out, but it's there if you need it. And the last feature, just like the other devices, is the voice control. Now the voice control that's in the Mac works just like the kind on the actual iPad and the iPhone. You can dictate a letter, you can dictate a text, you can control different things like the volume, the brightness. From what I'm seeing, you can actually control the computer entirely without touching a keyboard or a mouse. So now we're getting into the area where we're basically just going to be talking to our computer, and the computer is going to be doing all the work for you. I think many people, even though they're not handicapped, is going to use this feature a lot. So those are some of the highlight key feature of the Mac OS. There's plenty more features on this one also. That probably have to be in a separate video just like the other ones. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to talk about the OS in this video. You got the WatchOS, you got the iOS, now you got the iPadOS and the Mac OS. They didn't talk about the TV OS because that's another separate OS by itself. And not only that, they topped it off by introducing a new Mac Pro. But I'm not going to include that in this video. That's going to be a separate video by itself. So stay tuned to the channel because that video will be coming up soon. And you can do that by hitting that subscribe button and hitting that bell icon so you won't miss that video when it gets released. I want to thank you for taking the time for watching this video. I look forward to see you next time. Have a good one.